You may be wondering if you have a personal injury case. The short answer is if somebody's carelessness caused you a physical injury, then you probably have a right to assert a claim for damages under Texas law, and therefore you probably do have a personal injury case. When thinking about what your personal injury case looks like, though, there are several variables to consider. For example, one question that you might have is what you should expect to recover for your personal injury case so that you can decide whether or not it's a good idea to hire a lawyer to represent you. Evaluating your personal injury case in Texas can be a little bit challenging because there are several really important variables that come into play that you need to explore in order to understand what your path forward looks like. Typically, when I'm speaking with potential clients, I like to help them try to understand the building blocks of a personal injury case so that they can decide what they want to do and decide whether or not working with a lawyer makes sense for them in their circumstance. The first, of course, is to understand how badly the person is hurt. This can be a little bit more complicated than it might seem because oftentimes, right after the injury occurs, you might feel like you're probably going to make a full recovery, only to find out down the road that there's some sort of long-term nagging problem. So knowing the extent of the injury is often something that takes a little bit of time to unfold and requires the person to be diligent about getting medical care so that they can really get a feel for whether they're improving or whether they're plateauing or what the long-term consequences of that injury might mean for them. Because in short, the strength of a personal injury case can oftentimes hinge on the extent of the injury. And when a person is staring down the barrel of a long road of medical care ahead or even a lifetime of problems associated with their injury, that can sometimes strengthen the case for that person. Another variable to consider when trying to decide whether you have a personal injury case or not is how clear is the liability? In other words, how clear is it that the acts or failure to act of another person or party or parties caused or contributed to the event that ultimately resulted in your injury? If, for example, the injury-causing event was because of your own negligence, or if a jury decides that you were more than 50% legally at fault for causing or contributing to the incident that resulted in your injury, that can decrease or potentially even eliminate your right to seek compensation for your injuries at all. The third variable, and oftentimes one of the most challenging to really understand, is whether or not the person or people or parties who hurt you have any insurance or any other assets to go after. Oftentimes, answering this question can be very complicated. Sometimes we have to file a lawsuit so that we can even begin to understand what kind of insurance is available or what kind of resources might be available from the people or persons or parties who hurt you. So at the beginning of an injury case, it can sometimes be really challenging to help a client understand what the strength of their personal injury case might be, because we don't know whether the person or people who harmed them have sufficient insurance or resources to compensate them fully for what their harms and losses are. Another factor that can help influence the strength of your personal injury case is, what was the conduct of the person who hurt you? Was there some sort of reckless behavior like drinking and driving that contributed to the accident? Because if so, the law allows you to recover something called punitive damages, which are a civil penalty that can be assessed against the wrongdoer to punish them for their wrongful conduct. In our experience, cases that involve egregious conduct can oftentimes result in a larger overall recovery for our client because of the risk that presents to the insurance company who's responsible for paying out on the claim. In sum, determining whether or not you have a personal injury case can be really complicated, but you should feel confident to pick up the phone and talk to us to help you understand what your personal injury case looks like. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that you have an education on what your rights and options are so that you can make informed decisions to put yourself in the best position possible, not just to recover physically from your injuries and put your life back together, but to make sure that your case is handled as strongly and effectively as it possibly can.